All right, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Sunday night. It is February 19th, 2023, about 9:06 here along the West Coast in the PM. And the latest earthquake activity showing a 3.6 into the area of the Peru-Chile Trench down there along that subduction zone, relatively shallow at about 42 kilometers deep. This adjustment coming literally minutes within a 5.1 and a 4.9 in the area of the Tonga Trench. So a little bit of adjustment taking place here along the Pacific Plate as we speak. There is activity here around the Tonga Trench, 5.1 coming in just a little bit ago here within the last hour or so. 10 kilometers deep up along the subduction zone. Now remember, we were looking for a little bit of activity upstream from all of this deeper movement quake that we've been seeing, deeper movement earthquake activity that we've been seeing in the region of Fiji over the last couple days. Deeper activity, of course, adding strain upstream here along the Tonga Trench. Not a big earthquake, but it is definitely showing some signs of adjustment up here along the Tonga Trench. The Kermadec Trench area south, not seeing a whole lot of activity here according to the USGS, but we do have, well, there's that 4.5 here from, that should be getting ready to drop off the globe, 646 kilometers deep. New Zealand not showing anything up on the map currently. Let's see here what we got for activity. Stand by for just a second. Bring up the GeoNet servers. Got a lot to chat about here tonight, including some activity around Turkey and the migration of movement that's occurring out there. GeoNet showing the last earthquake reported was 10 hours ago, a 3.8 North Island around the Wellington area where that earthquake struck a few days back there. Let's see what else is included. Mostly some smaller microquakes around the North Island right now and over the last few hours. Doesn't look like anything major kicking up around New Zealand currently, but as always, definitely want to be on guard out there across that area of the plate boundary. Pretty sizable earthquake showing up, and let's see here. Which one is that? I bring up another window. I know USGS not showing anything down here. GeoNet looks like it's centered right around the Wellington area. I'm guessing that's going to be that three-pointer that kicked up. Let's see here. Just double check. 3.8 about 10 hours or so ago. It showed up pretty drastically, though. If you look at the seismograph stations, looks a lot larger than a 3.8. But yeah, that's about 10 hours or so ago on the time chart here. Yeah, it definitely looks larger than a 3.8, but all right. Aside from that, some very small microquake activity prior to that 3.8. Nothing following the movement there in the North Island, New Zealand area. All right, overall picture, though, kind of paints a little scene of activity here across the southwestern portion of the Pacific Plate into areas around the Papua New Guinea area, all showing a sizable increase in movement. Mostly fours out there, but it is definitely ramping up in terms of the multitude of quakes. Looks like the last one was a 4.3, somewhat deep here around the Solomon Sea. 96 kilometers deep here into this little bitty subduction zone around the New Britain area. Quite a few connect the dot earthquakes out here. 5.0 into the Philippines, just outside of Manila. It looks like into the northern end of the Philippine Sea, or the Philippine Trench, I should say. 10 kilometers deep. The rest of the trench looks pretty quiet until you get down south here, with a little bit of a deeper movement earthquakes occurring just north here of the Molucca Sea, including a 4.6 coming in at 227 kilometers deep. All four of these earthquakes listed up here on the map are from today, so and actually the majority of these earthquakes are listed from today. A lot of activity kicking up here around this region. One area up north here along the Kuril-Kamchatka trench is starting to fill in, but it's not filling in the way I would expect it to be. This is our region of, I'm going to turn off the bells. Hopefully we didn't have the bells ringing throughout this early update. I just checked it right now, but we should be good to go. We should be seeing a little bit larger activity here across this region of the Pacific Ring of Fire. It's a major subduction zone. You can see it, the oceanic crust here, that subduction zone of the North American plate, or the Pacific plate, excuse me, being shoved underneath this area to the northwest. Here's a little bit different view. This is that same area, the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, where the two arrows meet is the subduction zone level interface here that is being subducted underneath the North American plate. This area, like I say, it's very similar to what you would see along the South America region or any other major subduction zone, but I think this area here sees the highest rate of slip accumulation in a as far as a given year goes, and we have not seen any major earthquake activity along this zone in quite a while. It's a little on the concerning side far as the quietness goes, and plus that's backed up by the Eurasia plate, North American plate here, all kind of creating a major area for a large earthquake. And a couple measly 4s and a 5 out here just doesn't cut the potential for a large mega quake within the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. A 9.0 that occurred down in Japan back in 2011, further down south here. But more kind of chatting about this area upstream. The Kuril-Kamchatka Trench definitely needs to let loose here pretty soon, I believe. It's accumulating quite a bit of strain for the next big mega quake. But today, a couple earthquakes up along that plate boundary. Let's see what else we got. The Java Trench, a little bit of movement here on the northern end, coming in 4.9, 21 kilometers deep. Looks like 4 is a magic number across here, but very active across the area today. Indian Ocean, yeah, most of this activity occurring after the midnight time frame. So today, a couple 4s and even a 5.3 out there into the mid-Indian Ridge. It is a fracture zone, and looks like the Argo fracture zone area. Quite a few different fractures in the oceanic crust, a divergent boundary, separation of the seafloor. Kind of unzipping here in a little pattern. Up north into the Turkey area. Now this is a region I want to chat about because we're seeing some activity north into the east of all of our movement that we've seen here over the last week or so. And by the way, let me show you guys how many accumulated earthquakes have occurred out here in the Turkey region. This goes back the last 2 weeks. This is the general area around Turkey, where the large earthquake struck here over a week ago or so now. 2,669 earthquakes listed up here on the map. Now, that's kind of being cut off here. If we were to include some of these other earthquakes along this plate boundary that has kind of migrated down towards the Mediterranean area and the Crete area, I think it would be a lot more. Just on this map alone, 2,186. But that is a lot of earthquake activity in the last 2 weeks. The last week of movement, 874 earthquakes here across the plate boundary around Turkey. Last 24 hours or so, this little region right here is what I'm watching pretty closely. Now, it's going to be this cluster. Remember, a larger earthquake struck over here. Let me bring up the USGS 30 days of activity. This kind of shows the larger quakes that struck out here. Of course, we've seen that larger scale movement, 6.7, 7.8, a 7.5 up here, or 6.0, excuse me. And there was also that 7.5. A lot of activity either way, if you look at it. But we're watching a little bit of migration here away from that main movement that we've seen here over the last week or so in Turkey, along that same plate boundary with, well, we got 4 earthquakes here, roughly within the same time of each other, quite a few 4s, and I'm sure some smaller quakes as well along that plate boundary. So I pulled up historical data for this region of Turkey. If you look here, it's the same map, but I pulled up 6.5 and above over the last 23 years. We went back to the year 2000. And of course, the larger scale activity that we've seen over a week ago are listed here in the white circles. The last earthquake, roughly around the region where we're seeing the swarming today, was back in 2020. They did see a 6.7. Not for sure what's going on north of Dew, question mark. Not for sure why the USGS is stating that. But that's where that 6.7 occurred back then, 10 kilometers deep. Prior to that, nothing over the last 23 years here. So 6.5 and above, lacking activity. And this is a major zone here of accumulated stress. And the general plate movement within this area, if you look here across the region of Turkey, it's going to be this area right here along that plate boundary. Roughly within the Arabia plate here in the yellow, the African plate here in a, I don't know, it's kind of orange or pink salmon on this side, and the Eurasia plate up here to the north. It's kind of a triple point junction area where there's a lot of strain built up. But the migration is stretching up here north and eastward. But that would make sense here with the general plate movement showing that northeastern direction. So we got to watch that here around this area as it follows the plate boundary. That could mean that we could be seeing a little bit larger scale activity across this area of Turkey further east. Way over here around Lake Van, it looks like there was a 7.1 back in 2011. But we're missing, there's a little bit of seismic gap here in terms of larger scale activity over the last 23 years. So migration along the plate boundary like that, such as swarming, could be an indicator of some further large scale activity around this region of Turkey. So we'll continue to watch that, see how it plays out. But either way, a very interesting scenario. 3.6 earlier this morning around the Cyprus area. And yes, that's a USGS showing that here on the map. I kind of wish they would show some of the smaller quakes more often. If I ever get a job for USGS, I guarantee you I will make that happen. 4.5 Italy coming in, shaking things off just off the coast here. Looks like about 10 kilometers deep. See the did you feel it report? You know, not really seeing anything for the did you feel it reports here. Looking at the regional information area, looks like there has been some deeper movement quakes here across the sea region of Italy. All right, Atlantic Ocean, pretty calm. South Sandwich Trench here, of course, did see that earthquake activity this morning, 5.0, with some prior activity the day before up north. Possible that we could see some further activity down south here with the way this thing kind of shows a pattern of earthquake activity. It tends to start here in the north, tends to work its way down south with some movement down into the southern end of the South Sandwich Trench. So we'll watch that, see if it plays out that way or not. One oddball earthquake here into the South Pacific Ocean, and I say that because it's away from a major plate boundary here along the East Pacific Rise. The oceanic crust here does show some deformation and some fracture zones and a couple different seamounts out here. Defaulted depth there, about 10 kilometers deep for that 5.3. But it's definitely an odd one. We've got to pay attention to these areas that show uptick away from the plate boundaries. All right, West Coast activity. Things lighten up down into Southern California slightly, 1.5 along the Brawley seismic zone. That's just south of the San Andreas Fault, the southern segment. Salton Sea area showing a little bit of uptick up north of the Brawley seismic zone. Looks like a couple small ones. Very shallow earthquake activity away from the plate boundary. Not for sure if there's any specific fault systems that run underneath the Salton City area or the Salton Sea region. Again, this USGS map only shows a portion of what's out there along the Southern California area in terms of faults, but it's riddled with it, let me tell you. Southern California is riddled with faults that are known and unknown. Very dangerous area in terms of earthquake potential. South of Mexicali, way into Baja California area, 2.6 coming in within the last hour. And general typical movement up here along the San Jacinto fault zone with some microquake activity. And up into the Clear Lake volcanic field, things really rocking and rolling here over the last 7 days. Not associated with the volcanic activity. This is an ongoing process here of the Calpine hydrothermal operations that create energy out there in the region of Northern California. There's quite a few of these facilities that are in operation that inject raw sewage below. You can see them here listed on the map, clear as day. I'm not 100% certain about the process. It's very gross, but it's also very green if you think about it in terms of energy solutions and whatnot. But either way, they've definitely been showing a lot of activity here recently around the Cobb Mountain region and the Clear Lake volcanic field. Chico, what's going on outside of the city here? Looks like up around the Deer Creek Highway off Highway 32. Did see a 2.0 coming in, 4.8 kilometers deep. There is a fault system that does run through here, not showing up here on the USGS map. I can't remember what it's called, but a couple different fault systems run up here against the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. The Blanco fracture zone, a couple earthquakes from yesterday and today. 3.2 appears to be the magic number, including 1111. Quick glance here at the tremor map tonight shows, let's see what we got. Well, a little bit of uptick here, not in Northern California, but up north, outside of Seattle and into the southern end of the Vancouver Island range. Outside of Victoria, it looks like. This area is kind of about the northern section of the Cascadia subduction zone. As far as earthquake activity goes, I'm not really seeing too much activity here being reported by the USGS. But we will check Earthquakes Canada and see what's being reported up there. It's a weekend, so these guys, similar to the USGS, really don't get on the ball in terms of producing and putting out earthquake activity notifications. Doesn't look like a whole lot. Some of this movement here looks like it's from the past 2 weeks or so. All right, let's see what else do we have here across the area. Rest of the country looks pretty calm. Big island of Hawaii. Oh, goodness, we only got about 9 earthquakes out here today, with the most recent one, a 1.7, off the coast of Pahala, 30 kilometers deep into our typical swarm area. Let's see what else. I think that's about it for earthquake activity. We're going to switch over here to the space weather activity. Kind of getting a little face out here on the sun. Looks a little bit unhappy. These are coronal holes that are indicated here by the white outline. 78 down here is positioned well on the southern hemisphere of the sun. Not going to be directed at Earth, far as that high-speed solar wind stream flowing from that hole. The major sunspots that are currently facing Earth, or at least getting ready to face Earth, is 3229. That is the culprit of the X 2.2 flare a couple days ago, the strongest flare of the solar cycle so far, which, by the way, we're way ahead of schedule in terms of sunspot number and the solar flux index chart. That is still looking fairly dynamic in terms of the complexity of the magnetic structure. We'll watch this here as that rotates further into the Earth direction view. Other sunspots drifting off towards the western limb of the sun. And down here, a newer sunspot. It doesn't look all that promising, though. I think our main culprit is going to be this one. And also a newer sunspot here that we're kind of watching way out on the northeastern limb of the sun. It has not been named yet, but it should be named 3232. Some magic numbers there, maybe. We'll see how that plays out. Not really expecting any major storm here from our X 2.2 that kicked off a couple days ago. It did blast off a massive full halo CME, as listed here in this image there. A huge explosion. We're just going to get barely a glancing blow in our direction. I don't think it's going to be much, folks, at all. These guys are kind of forecasting a G1 class storm. That is pending it does even hit us. But I think it's very, very minimal. So don't look for much. And that's expected to be here, well, into tonight and tomorrow. And the current forecast, or at least the aurora forecast, is very minimal. I don't see any signs of that expected CME. A look at the solar wind data. There is a little bit of uptick here, a little bit of a disruption amongst the interplanetary magnetic field here with the BT-BZ component. We're getting a little uptick in density, little speed uptick as well as the temp. See if I can spit that out correctly. So that may be the pre-arrival of the CME that's supposed to be headed our direction. So we'll watch it and see how it plays out. But don't expect anything major. There's not a whole lot to work with from this from our position, according with the in relation to the CME that was produced from the X 2.2 a couple days ago. Current solar flare threat: 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 50, X flare at 15, and the proton event has been downgraded a little bit to 15%. Right now, as it stands, the main culprit in producing any significant flares is 3229, the one that produced the X 2.2 here a couple days ago. Does harbor a beta delta class magnetic structure. All right, weather conditions here real quick. We'll go into this as we look at the... let's go to the temp issues. There's going to be a lot of heat coming up here across the eastern portion of the country over the next couple days, with a massive switch in weather out here for the West Coast. The temperatures out here in the lighter purple area, some extreme cold. We're talking probably about 20 degrees away from the average normal temperature here across portions of the West. So that's some extreme cold temperatures out into the Midwest areas and the East Coast. You guys are going to cook. You guys are looking at probably a good 5 to 15 degrees warmer than normal. Could be some record highs, maybe a little bit higher than that, up into the Ohio area. Illinois regions could be seeing some record temperatures. That's around Wednesday and Thursday, and things kind of just get all jumbled up here over the next week or so. I do want to check out the precipitation out here along the West Coast, and we're going to look at snowfall. There's a couple different models here predicting some low elevation snow for California. Look at that. This is snowfall amounts, and that shows areas around Chico, Redding, maybe even around Sacramento getting some snowfall. Very light accumulation amounts, but this is some extremely cold air coming down. So depending, again, this is depending on how much moisture is left around with that cold air, will decide on how much snow accumulation is gets put down on the ground out here. So either way, things looking consistent with a couple different weather models. I was checking out the windy map as well. This one shows roughly about the same thing. If we check out the snowfall, new snowfall here for the West Coast, and we go over the next 10 days or so, goodness, around Chico area, looks good. 6 inches of snow? Oh, I would hope not. But either way, it's showing consistent low elevation snow here across Northern California come Thursday night, it looks like. Up around Redding, more accumulation. Looks like maybe 10 inches of snow. But again, this is the ECM WF model. The GFS model paints a little bit more of a scenario in terms of accumulation out here. 14 inches around Redding or so. Chico area, 9 inches. Woo! 9 inches of snow around Chico would not be good because, well, it would just not be good. I'm not going to go into details, but trust me, people already don't know how to drive out here in California. Some do, some don't, but yeah. So that's the ECM, WF, and the GFS model showing all in agreement that we could be seeing some low elevation snow come around the Thursday and Friday time frame. Looks like Thursday night, early Friday morning. I'm probably going to be up watching that all night to see if we do get some snow out here. And of course, I'll be doing some videos because the last time I seen snow was I'm talking about accumulated snow, stuff that sticks. It was probably back in 1980. I'm thinking 1989, 1988 or so. We had about 3 inches of snow. A little bit. I lived a little bit further south here, around the Williams area in Colusa County, and we had 3 inches of snowfall that stuck around for a little while. But that was a different setup. We had a lot of fog that trapped in some cold air, and then we had a subsequent low pressure system bring in some colder air on top of the fog, and it was just a perfect setup for snowfall in the Sacramento Valley. This is a little bit different, but I think we do have a good shot of seeing maybe some snowfall out here into the Sacramento Valley area come Thursday night. So I'm kind of excited. I'm a big snow fan, let me tell you. So, yeah. All right, guys. Let's see what else we have. I think that's about it. Well, we almost pushing 30 minutes out here for the update, so I better go check on the barbecue before it ends up into some jerky for tomorrow. Have a good night, folks. We will catch you guys out here a little bit later tomorrow. Again, stay safe out there and have a good one.